My name is Alex Mintsioulis, and over here at the studio, what I do is I work on two areas primarily. Firstly, I'm in charge of the user experience and quality assurance in the office, and the second thing that I do is I work on PR and marketing stuff as well, because we're a small independent studio at Logic Artists. We've got 13 to sort of fluctuates between 13 and 16 people in the office, and yeah, so we were founded 2011 by three now graduated master's students at the IT University of Copenhagen. They were focused or studied on game design and development, and they actually started the company while they were still just finishing off school, and used it as sort of a launching platform for themselves and their designs, and it's grown quite a bit since then, from three guys to 13 to 16 full-time employees, and in that time we have published our first PC title, which is called Expeditions Conquistador. I don't know if you guys know that game. It's a turn-based tactical RPG, and it's set in the age of exploration, which is to say that it's a story about, or the narrative experience is that you lead a party of people, an expedition of explorers to the New World as a Spanish conquistador group, and when you get there, you are given quite a lot of leeway in deciding the way that you behave. Do you follow more of the historical narrative as we know it, or do you behave in a different way now that we, as people in 2014, looking back on what we can easily consider the barbarism of an era, do you behave differently? So that was our first game, and that was a Kickstarter title. What happened was when we first founded, the initial project, the first project that the guys tackled was a Windows 7 phone game that was also themed historical adventure, and the Conquistador thing really came from that, and at the time, we got a successful Kickstarter campaign going. 77,000 is the of USD was the raising, or the earnings from the donations. I don't know what you want to call pledges. That was just 2 years ago now, so 2012. So we did the Kickstarter campaign, and it went really, really well. We had a little more than 1,500 backers, and it was really something pretty special for us. We're also really happy that, of course, that we've completed the campaign and successfully released the game, and it's out on Steam, GOG, Gamergate, and the Humble Store, and I'm forgetting one, Desera as well. So we were really happy with that, and it went really well for us. The Metacritic score for it was 77, and we got a user score of 8.2. So that was also really pleasing for us to see that people out there kind of got what we were going for, and then we set our sights on something new. Now, of course, turn-based RPGs are something that we're all really passionate about here in the office, and we're of course going to go back to them regularly. But one of the advantages of being an independent company, an indie dev team, is that we're not as restricted as some of the larger companies are, in the sense that we don't have to answer really to a board or anything like that, or rely on pre-existing IP, right? So one of the things that is sort of the mandate of the company is that we want to make games, one that the kind of games that we would like to see being made, right? And those don't always fall inside the mainstream, and that's convenient for us too, because our goal is to target what we refer to as the margins of the mainstream, and it means that there is sort of a group of players out there, users that are interested in trying something a little bit different than what you see regularly coming through the video game pipeline, and so we're looking at creating unique experiences in that way, and experimenting with different types of mechanics or different subject matters and seeing where that takes us. So Clandestine has been in production for about a year now, and so what we've done is we've put together for the early access release, we put together a group of challenge maps. Basically, these are maps that won't bleed into the sort of storyline or won't reveal the story or narrative of the game very much, because Clandestine is supposed to be a spy thriller, right? What that means, is that the story itself is going to have some twists and turns, and the players are going to make decisions that are going to take them sort of in one direction or another, and also we also focus on the player's behavior as resulting in different outcomes in the game as well, and so we don't want to reveal that stuff too early, like during early access, for example. So the goal of that is really to get the game in its rawest sense, the mechanics and the fundamental dynamics of the co-op, out in front of the players now, so that they can start seeing the type of stuff we're going for, and also have the opportunity to kind of give us a bit of feedback and help us mold and guide the game in the right direction. The game's main focus is on this experience for the two players, where one player is the spy on the ground, and the other player is the person, in their ear. In classic, or more like more recent of 90s and beyond spy movies, television stories, all that sort of thing. The spies are really badass. Don't get me wrong. They're quite badasses, but they're also reliant on actually an entire support network of a team that's there, sort of backing them up and actually feeding them the information they need to be the badass that they are. Right? They're not everything in one piece. They require a little bit of support. So the idea is, to let players experience that narrative. That narrative where one of you is, the person with the gun, the one on the ground, the one who is supposed to be getting the job done, and then the other one is the person in their earpiece, on the radio, on the cell phone, that sort of thing, where you're feeding them the information that they need because you have it all sort of in front of you, the layout of the level and the network and control, or the ability to control at least the networks. The game is set in the early or mid-90s. I think where it really stemmed from was that we wanted to do this sort of the new tech that kind of came out in the 90s, the dial-up modems. That was really the bridge to getting us to where we are today with this, ubiquitous technology. We have phones and cameras and portable computers in our pockets. And one of the things that we didn't want to do, narratively speaking, was write a game story where everything could potentially just be super high tech. One of the, I guess you could see, like, one of the things that they had to really tackle in Watch Dogs, for example, is that, they created a world where everything is accessible by the push of a button on your phone. And we didn't want to make that kind of experience, because if the spy had the access to all of that stuff at the push of a button on their phone, then really that collaboration between them and the hacker becomes less and less narratively relevant. We thought that in the early 90s or mid-90s, that was that time when not that much of, like, the general population really understood how pervasive computers were going to be. It was like a bit more fantasy. People were still thinking maybe towards the Jetsons. Then really the way it's sort of ended up here now in reality, and we just thought this is the perfect time where, for example, if you were a spy and you were trying to, let's say I was trying to talk my way into some high security area, as a spy or something like that, in the modern world, it's really easy to follow up on that kind of stuff, right? I'm so-and-so from this company, right? Like, you can just Google that nowadays, and you'll find out in seconds if the person is who they say they are. Whereas back in the 90s, there was still this there was still I think we felt like there was a lot more opportunity in both in the game mechanics but also in the story writing to give the players chances to like trick their opponents in the levels, to overcome enemies or obstacles by social engineering as opposed to just violence. Like, so we have these various layers of mechanics for getting the job done as far as our narrative quests or our narrative missions are concerned. And of course we're going to let players play it with gun in hand and chucking grenades and using gadgets and stuff like that. But we also wanted to make sure that there was this extra opportunity for them to play with or to experiment with social engineering, which is the part of hacking that I think a lot of people don't realize is really fundamental to how many of these security breaches that we've read about or heard about in recent years have actually occurred. It's not so much that there's like a crack team of computer geniuses aggressively typing on their keyboards as it is like that there's a number of clever people who are able to impersonate people that their targets trust, like an IT personnel or things like that, where you essentially use social engineering to convince your targets in the game to reveal the information that you need or to get the information you need to trick them. Well, initial reactions, I think that they're generally quite positive. The people who are playing it, seem to see the potential, and we've been getting some nice feedback. One of the things that we're trying to do is engage with the audience as much as we can, and we thought that the early access venue was really the way to do that. The chance to get the game, obviously for us, out in front of players sooner, but also the chance for people that are interested in this game, want to have a look at it, check it out, and essentially be involved a bit in the development by giving feedback and by engaging with us on the forums. They have the opportunity to help us to refine the experience. So that's also so I think the reactions have been quite good so far, and we're really happy with them. And we're trying to be as active as we possibly can, trying to, we certainly read every comment that's out there, and then try to engage with the ones where people are actually looking for us to engage. Of course, we want to make sure that the players have the freedom to carry on their own conversations without us jumping in, but if they want us to be involved, then we're all ready, we're there and ready to communicate and to participate. And we're hoping to involve them more and more as the development goes on. What I would say is that early access is first and foremost, like you said, it's a program that Steam offers to line players and developers up together. And I think the people that it benefits the most, or that it's designed to benefit the most, are the smaller development teams, right? The people that need a little bit more exposure, like us, and also that want to be able to communicate with their users a bit better. I think the larger companies have it a lot easier in those senses because they obviously have the bigger budgets and, of course, all of the infrastructure to support that kind of stuff. But for smaller indie teams like ours and many of the other ones that are getting involved, I think it's an excellent way to make sure that people who are genuinely interested in the kind of stuff that you're doing get a chance to get excited about it and participate in it. Now, as far as for the way that players have interpreted early access and whatnot, I have read only on our forums now. I'm speaking on my experience on reading them, that some people have been sort of hurt before in the early access experience, and that ranges from things like the game's not being completed finally, like not getting a final version of the game, or feeling like the early access builds that the players were receiving weren't really being updated, or they weren't getting any attention from the developers. And those are two things that I think that were really important to us to make sure. We're trying to make sure that it's clear that first and foremost that the game is going to be released its full version regardless of anything in early access. I think early access is going great for us, and that's really awesome. But if it hadn't, we would still be able to release the game. It's just that it's important for us, essentially, like I said, to get the game out there in front of other users. And of course, if we have a particularly successful early access campaign, and more people get involved by purchasing the game and participating, then of course that's going to mean that we're going to just have more time in our timeline to keep working on the game and making it better and refining it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is regarding the early access experience for players. Whether or not people, the developers are actually listening. We are the development team who is actively on the forums, so you can see us responding to things, and you will have a little dev tag next to us that Steam provides to make sure that players know, or users know, that we actually are being involved and participating and communicating with the different people that are asking questions and that sort of thing. And then after that, besides just doing that on the forums, it's not just a lip service. The thing is that we're taking these bits of feedback that people are giving us, and through our communication and discussion, we're able to target some areas of the game that beside, we know that, of course, because it is an early access game, that lots of things need work, and of course we knew that going into it. But sometimes prioritizing which things are the most important to players is something that's difficult to do as a developer, because we're looking at this big picture final version, whereas the players are looking at what they have in their hands right now. So that's really helping us to cater towards the builds that we're making, and we are updating our early access builds. We did our first update the very first week after we released, and then last week we did not have one because we're working on something that's giving us a little bit of extra work, and of course we don't want to release stuff on the early access that's going to end up being even buggier or whatever, adding more trouble to the player experience. We want to just continue only providing patches that make the game more interesting and entertaining. So of course we reserve the right to hold back our builds until they're stable enough for the users, but basically our goal is to regularly patch things, and we're attempting once a week, but if it takes a little bit longer than once a week, obviously we're going to take that extra time to make sure that we put out something that's good. So the release date is, we're scheduled in our own schedule. We're scheduled for about 3 to 6 months for final release. That's with the full story missions that are all playable in co-op and in the single player, and really, again, like I said, that sort of range, 3 to 6 months, fits inside of our budget and timeline. But if we get more support via the early access stuff and more interest, then of course we will take more time with the game as well. The price point is going to be, in final release, $29.99. That's euros, I believe. And right now, as it stands, there is a discount. It's down to $27.99 in the euros market, but also we're going to be giving a DLC included in that package. Now, we're not going to have a day one DLC, but what we are doing is, once we have our final release, then we will begin creating a DLC. It'll be a $4.99 or €5 DLC. It's going to have an extra map and an extra gadget, maybe some other stuff. Still figuring out what to roll into that for a package, but everybody who joins us on early access is, like I said, not only just going to get the initial discount, but also they'll be getting an extra DLC valued at €5. So. Well, I guess it comes down to, really, for us, it's the co-op experience. Like I said, as an indie team, one of the things that we focus on is making games that we would really, really love to see out there in the marketplace, and then, of course, hoping or making sure that it's unique enough that other people would be interested. For us, that interesting or unique experience comes from our asymmetrical co-op play, and I know that asymmetrical co-op is a big buzzword these days, but I think that we've got an interesting take on it. Of course, because the the spy plays in a traditional third-person stealth mode, and the hacker plays in this two-dimensional sort of windowed mode, like as though you're working on an old Windows PC or something like that. And for me, there's this difference when you talk about co-op. I feel as though almost there needs to be a new category to describe this play between two or more players, and that is that when you have a co-op game, even a two-player co-op game similar to ours, you can play co-op, but that doesn't mean that you're playing together. It just means you're playing at the same time. And for us, what we're more about is collaboration than cooperation. So what that means is that the extra difference there is that in collaboration it requires, first and foremost, that the players communicate well with each other, and that they work together or create strategy together, or they behave tactically in a way that's negotiated between the two players. And so our gameplay is focused on this experience, which leads to what we call the player's narrative, or this change in players' experiences as they enjoy the game and as they recount their player experiences. The fact that they're working together and heavily communicating and participating, also trying to coordinate actions at the same time or at similar times, it means that you get these much more rich and interesting player stories, and that is the type of experience that we're going for. I think there is a great atmosphere here in Denmark right now in support of new technology development, and that's including the gaming sector. So there is quite a bit of support going on these days right now in Denmark, in Copenhagen, for new startups and for new developers in games and in technology, and we're really, really happy to be a part of that.